Welcome to the program. I'm Heather Hewitt. And tonight, hundreds of search and rescue specialists, firefighters and paramedics are continuing to search through the rubble of Christchurch for trapped survivors of yesterday's devastating earthquake. The death toll stands at 75, but 300 people are still missing. The city's emergency services chief says rescuers may only have 2 or 3 days to locate anyone still alive. Dozens of aftershocks have rocked the city, much of which remains without power or water. We begin our special coverage by crossing live to the ABC's Connor Duffy in Christchurch. Connor, what have been your impressions of the huge rescue effort and how the people of Christchurch are coping with this disaster?
Heather, the scale of this disaster is just so massive that it's hard to comprehend how anything could change a city so quickly, just transform it in a matter of minutes. You see the buildings, monuments that have stood here for hundreds of years, just transformed, twisted, pits of wreckage. But you really get a sense for the scale of this tragedy when you see the personal tales of grief written on people's faces. Right from this morning when we first met, medical teams who'd been working through the night in the dark and the cold, pulling people from rubble, having to perform amputations, pulling out the dead, and some of them then have to sleep in the park, and they're just ashen-faced with grief. Even worse are the people who have brothers or wives or husbands or sisters trapped down in the rubble. You hear stories of people who have been able to make contact with people by mobile phone. They feel so close to their loved ones, but yet they're still so far. Amidst those personal stories, there's also occasional flashes of joy as rescuers make a breakthrough. And amidst all of these personal stories, there's the ongoing aftershocks, which you really feel right through your body, right through your chest, and you can see the fear on people's faces every time the ground shakes again.
It sounds an absolutely terrible situation. Are people still very much clinging to the hope that there will be more survivors?
That's right, they are, Heather, and now really is the crucial time for that. As you mentioned before, there's really 2 to 3 days to get people out and to get to them safely, so the crucial hours are really right now. The city's in lockdown. The police are being very restrictive on who can gain access to the city. There's even some reports suggesting journalists could be arrested for entering there. Really, people are still just too much in shock to really comprehend how big a scale this is and how big the rebuilding task is. And to give you a taste of that, here's some images of the scene here in Christchurch.
Jesus. Right!
There is no reason that can make sense of this event. No words that can spare our pain. We are witnessing the havoc caused by a violent and ruthless act of nature. Many people have lost their lives. Families have lost their cherished loved ones. Mates have lost their mates. Buildings are just buildings. Roads are just roads. But people are irreplaceable. We will be with you every step of the way.
Christchurch awoke to its devastating reality, a city on its knees, and the destruction worsening as more buildings collapsed. Many of its people are already grieving, and others are feeling the anguish of the desperate hunt for wives, husbands, fathers and sons.
Hello? She's in the classroom. Are you in the classroom? Hey, people are doing everything to save you.
I've been trying to text my daughter's phone since I had reception, just because I thought the rescuers might hear the ring and dig down and find her.
Trapped on the first floor.
Yeah, she's on the first
trying to
floor.
get in there last night. We've got 2 kids at home asking where mum is.
Even in a place that's endured 6 months of aftershocks following last September's quake, the savagery of this disaster took everyone by surprise.
We followed the locals' lead, really, and just ran into the middle of the street, and people were pouring out of buildings in absolute hysterics, and we were just looking around in absolute disbelief at the amount of damage that had been done to buildings that were only, a few metres down from the convention centre. and we barely had time to even get our bearings before the aftershock hit.
A team of Australian doctors in Christchurch for a conference joined the rush to come to the aid of strangers.
We said, we're doctors, we want to help, where are we needed? And the cathedral was the first place where a number of teams had congregated to try to clear the rubble. And what I was greeted with was basically a spire that had collapsed next to the church, and through the windows of the cathedral you could see that rubble completely covered the entire tower. And I knew immediately that there must have been people in that tower and that they must have been crushed by the rubble.
Dr. Sarah Azer from Melbourne was among many to spend a cold and confronting night in makeshift triage centres.
A lot of them had fractures, lots of cuts and lacerations. They were in shock. One woman definitely had compartment syndrome in her leg and may lose that limb. There was a pregnant lady that was able to be saved and rushed to the hospital. There was evidence all around you of death, of damage, of places where people had been resuscitated.
And authorities fear people are still trapped in the rubble at least 7 major sites across the city. The worst hit for now is the headquarters of a local television station, where authorities say there have been no signs of life.
Well, the CTV building was a devastating collapse and fire yesterday, and we had urban search and rescue people there from yesterday afternoon until this morning.
How many people do you fear could still be inside there?
Well, we don't know for sure. We're getting conflicting reports about how many people may have been in there, but we understand up to 50 may, and I stress may, still be in that building, so we'll continue rescue operations on that basis. So is that your
biggest area of concern at the moment then in terms of human life?
Yes, it is, yeah.
The other major fear is for workers in the Pine Gould building, where it's believed many people are still to be found. There was one breakthrough today, with Australian rescuers reaching a woman trapped for 24 hours.
I was around at Pine Gould Guinness half an hour ago when they found somebody they were talking to in the rubble, and that's really good. You know, it's one of the high points of what we do.
For now, though, there are more armoured personnel carriers on some streets than there are cars.
The ever-present fear of aftershocks here in central Christchurch means that authorities are still concerned about even seemingly secure buildings and greater loss of life. The other big problem facing this city is access to fresh water. As much as 80% of the city's water supply was knocked out in the earthquake, and residents are being told not to shower or use their toilets and to conserve water as much as possible.
We've just had another aftershock, 5 minutes ago that shook the whole ground here. So our people have got to be extremely careful to make sure that they go careful, to make sure they go safely, and that in doing so that they don't become victims themselves.
As New Zealanders prepare for another heartbreaking night, searching rubble in the cold and dark, the country's leader is trying to rally his people.
Christchurch, this is not your test. This is New Zealand's test. I promise we'll meet that test.
Connor Duffy with that report.